Well, we are back for another episode of Fertility Ain't Fair, the podcast. And I am Brittany Jackson, your host. And as always, I am not alone in this seat. And I am just very, very, very fortunate and blessed that Angie Booker is here with us, not only to be with our community, but she reached out literally at the very perfect time. And I was so happy because I was following her. I think she was following me. And I was like, she's on my list to reach out. And she did it first. And I'm just so blessed and fortunate that she did that because we have a lot to talk about on this episode of Fertility Ain't Fair. But first things first, Angie, I'm going to get into this quick bio. Of course, you guys know all the good details will be in the episode to check her out and connect with her after this. But let's get into the highlights because, as always, my guests have a lot going on, right? Like they are doing
a lot.
a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm always so fortunate that you all took time to do this. So Angie is a writer, a marketing strategist, and a voice on infertility whose work bridges professional storytelling and lived experience. She brings a voice to the conversations around things like infertility, grief, faith, and the many paths to parenthood, which we appreciate. All of those things are things we've touched on the many, many episodes that we've had and things that I hold very, very close to my heart. So I'm again, just gracious for the conversation. And we're going to get into some more about this. So your infertility journey started about a decade ago, and it includes failed IVF. So we'll talk about that. A delayed medical diagnosis that potentially could make pregnancy very, very difficult and or unsafe for you. And an alternative family building through adoption. So we're going to get into all three of those really big topics on this episode of Fertility Ain't Fair. But in the meantime, Angie, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. And I'm glad my note met you at the perfect time. And I
It
do
did.
believe that connection happens even when we don't realize that we need it,
Yes.
especially
Yes.
in this space. So happy to
Absolutely.
be here with you.
Awesome. Well, let's dive in. Before we get into the full story, I have to ask you the question that I ask all of my guests at the top is how are you currently defining yourself in this season, in this life? Whatever's happening in Angie's world, what are some words or phrases for us to get to know more about you outside of what's in your amazing bio?
Honestly, in this season, so I am a mom who is parenting without my mom. So I lost my mom a year ago, just a year ago last month. And I don't know if I really understood or just how much she was a guiding light in my parenting journey, both in my infertility journey. And then once we welcomed our son, my mom she was always that guiding light. Like she was that girl. She's still that girl. So I'm learning how to parent without her and still always trusting the light within and knowing that she's with me. So I think that's that season. The season I'm in now is just figuring out what that looks like for me, what that looks like for the next year and the next year, and just kind of going with it. So while it's been a difficult year, it still has brought me to different spaces within. And this being a path that she's always said, speak up. I think people could use your story. Hey, can you talk to someone at my church? Her daughter's going through something. So I feel like she's still with me. So I think in this season, just figuring out what that looks like for me without my mom.
Well, I am sorry that you lost your mom, first and foremost. Um, she sounds very much like my mom, who's usually the first call when I leave an appointment or I'm going to an appointment or, you text and you call in, I'm like, and who comes down at the drop of a dime if something's happening. And, on this journey, being at the forefront, like my husband and her, 1 and 2,
The one
you
and
know,
two partners.
yeah, yeah, partners in all of it, and the first calls that we make when anything is happening.
Yeah.
And so I know the day will come, and I dread the thought of it. But I'm glad that you had her to see you become a mom. And so that's one of those things when I think about the journey. It's like, oh my gosh, she may never see me become a mom. And that sucks, right? And it's like,
But I do believe that in some of that is like they're here when they're supposed to be here. So I
Absolutely.
think my mom was here to see me to a point where she felt like she could leave
Yeah.
because she wasn't well. So I think that she was strong enough while she needed to be there
Yeah.
for me when I couldn't be strong for myself. So
Absolutely.
there's definitely beauty in that, and just the
Oh, yeah.
blessing of having a mother
Yeah.
and a closeness like that will just
Yeah.
transfer over to your parenting.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, I love it. Shout out to all the good moms.
All the moms,
Man.
all the roster,
Oh,
all the girls. I like my mom was my girl. Like,
no, really,
where are you,
truly,
girl? You left.
truly.
Where
I
are
mean, I was
you?
texting her
Yeah,
before we got on, and I'll call her when I leave. To head
exactly.
back home. But truly, yeah,
Yeah.
that girl. So take us back. I know you mentioned that your journey started about 10 years ago at this point, and it included failed IVF. And that's something that I think needs to be talked about more just for the sake of the fact that it happens.
Yeah.
And everyone does not leave IVF, no matter how many times you might try, how much you pour into it with a child.
Right.
And, for us right now in this space, we've also done multiple rounds of IVF and have not had, we have no baby at home to show
Right.
for it.
Right.
And it may not be an option, moving
Yeah.
forward, whatever we decide to do, if we decide to be childless, not by choice, or if we decide to look at other routes. But I think, you don't want to, I feel sometimes I don't want to always speak on it sometimes in support groups because I don't want to discourage
For sure.
anybody, right? But I also think there is a space and a place for women to talk about, what happens when this very big, what you think could be, big hopeful thing, fails.
Yes.
So can you take us back to what that looked like and how you ended up at the IVF treatment place to begin with?
So I'll say I was late marrying. So Kiss My Frogs, 20s, 30s, 38, we were married. And like some of us, we just feel like, okay, all my 20s and early 30s, I took birth control, trying not to get pregnant. Now is the time before a honeymoon, stop the pills. Like it's just going to happen naturally. So 3 months passed, see my OBGYN. She's like, let's give it 6 months. You're over 35, then we'll send you off for testing. 6 months passes and I go in for blood work. I'm with the normal levels as far as my egg quality for that age. And then I go in for the HSG test. And I remember my husband saying, I can come with you for that to the radiology office. And I'm like, no, I'll be fine. Like, I'm going to go on my lunch break, go in, it'll be fine. I had a friend going through it. She's like, it's a little uncomfortable, but standard testing, it'll be fine. It wasn't fine. The pain, if anyone's ever gone through an HSG, especially if you have any fallopian tube blockages, it's like they're just trying to push that dye through. And I'm like, what is happening? No one prepared me for this. I don't know what is happening. And you keep trying. And then they just like stopped. And they're like, okay, you can get dressed now. And the radiologist comes in the room and I'm alone and I don't know what really just happened. It's trauma. And she's like, well, both of your fallopian tubes are blocked but it'll be fine. We can go, your uterus is beautiful. We can go around your tubes with IVF. You'll be fine. So I just remember calling my husband and he's like, do you need me to come to the office and get you? Like, what's happening? I'm like, okay, no, I'm going to pull myself together, get out of this office. I'm like, I can't believe she just told me that it's going to be fine. Is it really going to be fine? So leave the appointment like a lot of us do, go back to work because again, this is on my lunch break and trying to process all this and what does this look like for me? And then I went straight into IVF mode. It went into who do I know that's gone through IVF? I had a colleague at work. She'd gone through egg freezing like 6 months before this happened with me. She's like, oh, I have a great reproductive endocrinologist. I'll give you her information. Our company has great benefits. Here's the details. And I go straight, I'm IVF. It's going to work. Like they can go around my tubes. My egg quality is fine. It'll be fine. Again, everything's going to be fine until it wasn't. So even in that moment, like looking back, I probably should have spent more time doing my own due diligence. I went to her reproductive endocrinologist, very smart woman. But again, it's like rush, rush, rush. You're almost 40. Probably need to get on this now. We'll start with a we'll push with a strong protocol because of your age. Like hopefully one cycle will do. And I'm like, okay, it'll do. It'll be fine. And then go through IVF, all of that. And that cycle failed miserably. I think I might have had 7 eggs retrieved and none of the 7 embryos, nothing made it to blastocyst. So I remember getting the phone call. I was walking into work on a Monday morning. I'm in the parking garage and a nurse calls, a male nurse, and says, well, none of the embryos made it to day 5. The last one we thought would make it died off yesterday. The yesterday was my anniversary, my first wedding anniversary. So I just remember like turning around, going back to the car again, calling my husband and just like losing it. I never want to do this again. This doesn't feel right. I hate it. I don't want to, it's awful. I don't want to do it. And he's like, if you don't want to do it, we don't have to do it, but let's just process, move on with the day, have a voice conference with the doctor. And she's like, well, oftentimes the first cycle doesn't work because we have to figure out what works for your body. And, we went with a very strong protocol. We'll look at some other ways, maybe something a little more natural, gentle, and come in for the follow-up appointment and let's talk. So about a few weeks past the follow-up appointment, and I just really in my gut feel like I don't want to do this again. I don't emotionally, my hormones, like physically, I just was wiped out by it. Like I just didn't want to do it. And I remember sitting in her office and us talking through what she thought could have gone wrong in my age and the protocol. And we could even do donor eggs. And there's so many other ways we could go about doing donor embryos. And if you have the financial means to do this, like it's plenty of ways you could become a parent. And then she asked the question, do you really want to carry a baby? Is that what or do you really want a child? And I'm like, I really want a child. I'm like, I'm not married to the idea of like carrying a baby. I'm nearly 40. I understand, all that, the risk. And she's like, have you considered adoption? And it was a conversation my husband and I had before. And he has lots of cousins and family members who have been adopted. My family, we didn't have anyone. I hadn't had that experience, but I was open to it. And a year later, we welcomed our son, the adoption.
Oh.
And so that's kind of the IVF piece to it. Like, I know now that my gut, that when we talk about the God winks and the intuition and the instinct, and me trusting that was not, I should not do it again. I'm so glad and fortunate, looking back 10 years ago, that I didn't pursue that. But a lot of me still felt like, and I think sometimes like I was like an IVF dropout. Like I didn't even give it a chance because so many women go through multiple rounds of IVF. It's very few women that I've ever met who like it's one and done.
Right. Yeah.
It's typically at least 2 or 3. And I don't know the statistics around it, but I think it's around the 2, 3, something like that. So I do. Sometimes I look back, I'm like, well, maybe I should have gone another round. I have friends who went couple of rounds, a couple of transfers. They have kids that are my son's age now. But I know now that I wasn't supposed to go that route.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. A couple of things that you mentioned that I just want to make sure to highlight. You mentioned the fact that, the HSG, which we all know is, routine, right? It's one of the common things that we go through on this side. I also had a black fallopian tube as well. And I found that out, was like, what does that even mean? How we get here? But, routine and trauma. Because I feel like there's just an assumption that if something is routine, then it's not traumatic. And and I get it. Everybody literally is different. And so for some, it is not a painful experience. It's not uncomfortable or and vice versa. For some, it's very, very painful, very, very uncomfortable. But I think regardless, I think there's just this inclination for us to feel like because something is routine, it doesn't leave a scar. It's not traumatic. And I think, the unseen part of infertility is medical trauma.
Mhm.
And I've realized just over, the many years that we've been on this journey, like how much medical trauma I have built up. And, while there have been, good moments here and there where I felt like where I was listened to, I was cared for, all the different things, at the end of the day, I still have, left this journey, at least up until this point, with a lot of layers of a lot of PTSD. And, if anything is wrong, I'm just like, oh, wait, like, a lot, because my
Yeah.
guard is up when it comes
All
to
the
the medical field.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're
And
almost expecting the disappointment sometime, and the
yeah,
discomfort becomes
yeah,
almost too routine or too
yes,
accepted,
yes,
and that's not okay.
yeah,
Not
yeah,
okay.
yeah, yeah. I totally agree with you. If I feel like I'm just, I guess, more conditioned to feel like
Yeah.
it's not, going to be okay. And it's not because I'm questioning faith. It's just it's hard to ignore that feeling when that's really all that you have
Yeah.
felt. And then you
And then
mentioned
there's
having,
the elected part of that too. It's like, I think people's view when you choose IVF or you're choosing to go
yeah,
out, you're electing
yeah,
this. So you're almost like, well, you know what you have to go through because you're choosing to. It's not a cosmetic procedure.
it's not.
It's not.
It's not.
It's not.
And most people who end up here are not choosing it by choice.
Mm-mm.
So we are here
Most
as
of them are
a
not.
right. Like I know there's the, hey,
There's
whoever,
some, right, but
some, but the majority
yeah,
of us everyday folk are not here by
or not.
choice. We are here as a last resort, or
Mhm.
if there's really no other option, or whatever medical
Yeah.
reasons, etc. Um, and you also mentioned having to, of course, go back. I'm on my lunch break,
Mm.
walking into work, and I got to a point, my nurses, over the years, I was like, you know what, just leave me a voicemail, because I said, you guys, I am I am up to my neck in having breakdowns with you all on the phone every time you have to deliver the news to me about whatever it is, whether it was, the eggs retrieved, or the embryos that they had to blast, or the negative test. I was like, can y'all just leave me a voicemail today, and I will check it when I am ready to receive, because it was hard
It was
to get
hard.
those
Yeah.
phone calls. And they're very
Yeah.
quick, right? It's like, oh, I'm so sorry, but we got to
So
move on to the next 100 patients get a
100
call
patients. It's
throughout
and
the
it can be distracting. Like I look
yeah.
back and I'm like, I had a wonderful manager, a
Mhm.
woman who just really knew, like I trusted her, so she knew what was
Yeah.
happening. But it's like I don't even know how it was working. I don't even what was my production like at work because my mind was like,
What am I
for
doing?
this block of time, I'm
Yeah.
like hyped up on hormones, and I
Yeah.
don't know. I'm at appointment to appointment and scheduling
Yeah.
shots and
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm just waiting for that call.
The
Like
call.
I know my anxiety is on a
Yeah,
thousand.
yeah.
And what I also heard you say was that, the doctor asked you, and I've heard someone else mention this on a podcast, and it really shifted my whole perspective as well. Do you want to carry, or do you want to be a parent?
Yes.
And that's a really big question, because, again, for those who don't have to think about things like that, right? It seems it's very natural that, like I said, it's going to happen,
Yep.
and this is the way, and this is how
Yes.
it's supposed to happen. And we have to look at it very differently when we, start hitting roadblocks in that journey of what we actually really want. And then we have to ask ourselves those questions, like what's really the goal here? What's really important here? And so for you to say, you know what, I just want to be a parent, you
But
know?
but I'll say with that is like I always say, and it's been circulating, especially since the Jennifer Aniston
Mm,
interview. It's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
no, adoption is not plan B. It
No,
has its own
yeah,
so you gotta I had to work through a lot of with
yes. It's not a
myself
quick
to like see if
transition. Like,
that's
oh yeah,
something that I wanted
great.
to. Yeah,
Yeah,
so it's like, when people say, oh well, you can just adopt. No, it's not
no,
that, that carrot that has its own
we
journey
must
or it's
stop
a
saying that.
different
We must
conversation,
stop
but
saying that to people.
yeah, so it's like, it there's beauty in that, but there's still a lot of trauma in that too. And yeah. So I understood what she meant, and it stood out because it came from a doctor, because I don't
Yeah,
think that a lot of REs would even really ask that question,
Mhm.
because sometimes they do have some of them have a bad rep of like, okay, they want to get you to the next cycle
Right.
because it's more money. But
Mhm.
when you find a good one who actually will have those conversations with you, like, hey,
Yeah.
I'm not going to push you to the next cycle. What these are your options. What might you want to explore?
Yeah.
And it almost planted a seed that me and my husband were already kind of in conversations about it anyway.
Yeah.
So it worked for us. That worked
Yeah.
for us. Yeah.
So let's go there. The transition from, okay, what's really important here, and you decide, okay, the important thing is becoming a parent. So then what's the options for that? Um I know you said a year later you had your son brought into your life, which is, I think, I mean, that's an amazing turnaround time to go from, that to welcoming him home. But like you said, that it was not an overnight, I'm sure, just mindset shift.
Yeah.
So what were the things that you all dealt with, and how did you get through? Because obviously you knew what the goal was, and you knew, you were clear to that. This is what we're going to do. But grieving, I'm sure, right? Did you grieve the fact that you would not have biological child? Did you grieve the fact that, it's going to look very different than I'm sure hoped and prayed for to start?
I still grieve it.
Yeah.
And that's the reality of it. Like there's still shame that I carry, that years of therapy and working through and healing, and not healed from, but healing from the imposter syndrome when I'm in a group and I don't have a birthing story to share. Um, but I will say that Angie at that time really was so thirsty to be a parent that I hopped off the IVF train and I ran to that one. So I look at my husband sometimes like we were just dragging you along. Like you were just my sanity, my safe place. But it's like, okay, let's push forward with this. Like we're gonna go this direction. I honestly didn't give my time to like breathe and process.
Hmm.
Like I moved from I failed IVF to what's next. Like what do I do next? How do we adopt a baby? Is it going through fostering to adopt? I knew I couldn't foster.
Hmm.
I love that people are able to foster, but they explain to you when you're fostering with the intent to take care of a child until their parent is able to parent. So
Yeah.
I knew that I would not be able to part with a child.
Yeah.
And then a family friend was caring for a small baby, and we had time to spend with her, and it was amazing and beautiful, and I totally fell in love with her. And her mom did parent her, like decided to work through her things and keep her. But it was in that moment that I realized, wow, you can absolutely love a child that is not biologically yours. So
Hmm.
again, a God wink.
Yeah.
Like that child came into our lives unexpectedly, just for a brief moment, a couple weeks, and said hello, but helped us realize, okay, we really need to pursue this with some intention. And we decided to go the direction of private adoption, which is very expensive and still very taxing. And I always acknowledge the privilege that me and my husband had, in that we had adoption reimbursement at my job. We
Hmm.
had, coverage for IVF at a large percentage. We weren't really out of pocket for much. So I acknowledge that privilege and that everyone doesn't have it, but we were able to do private adoption. And even with that, it was a lengthy period of like meeting mothers, and you're creating a profile book, and you're almost like selling yourself
Yeah.
to families.
Hmm.
And we were very blessed in that we landed on my son's birth family, and they are amazing, and I hold them dear. And it was just the perfect marriage, and that worked in our favor. But while I still grieve not being able to conceive naturally, it's still the biggest blessing,
Yeah.
because I'm here with him, because I was not able to conceive, or that IVF cycle wasn't successful, because I probably were just going to be one and done. We were okay with one child.
Yep.
So we're here. So it all worked out. And, there's this big blessing. But if I'm honest, the grief still lives in me, because I feel like my body was supposed to do
Yeah.
something that it couldn't.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I'm still working through that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I thank you for acknowledging that. I think there's some, we think that, okay, well, if you get to the other side of infertility and, you do become a parent, that, there's this level of, oh, well, it was all worth it, and which it is, but like
Yeah,
as if it just kind of it all disappears, right? As if
right.
the trauma, the grief, and all the things disappear, and it doesn't.
It doesn't.
And so I thank you for acknowledging that, regardless of how, blessed and happy you are to be a mom, that there is still grief in the journey. Because I think, when I started looking at grief a lot differently, going through all the things we've gone through. And I know that, grief is love with no place to go. And it's just this open space, and it's not like it gets any smaller. You just find ways to live with it. And, I think that the realization that I had to come to with is that I'm not going to have a biological child. We have no more embryos. I can't get any more eggs. So that is a closed chapter, at least on some part of this journey. And, part of it is, very, very sad. And to your point, I will always grieve, that the intangible that we never got to see. But on the other side, there is some contentment and peace that we did what we could, with what we had. And so, but I just acknowledging the fact it's allowing me to say, you know what, it's okay to say that grief is going to always live no matter what we choose or do not choose to do. So thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
Can we get into the medical diagnosis? Because if we don't have enough going on,
the plot twist that I didn't even know was like twisting at the time.
So I know it was delayed, but okay. So from IVF to your son coming into your life, from that point forward,
all that. It was before
it was
that.
before this.
So 2015, I got a call from my primary care doctor at the time that my liver enzymes were highly elevated. And so I'm like, okay, well, what does that mean? She's like, we're going to send you to a hepatologist here locally. I have 1 hour refer, and go there, and you need to work with them, figure out maybe you're taking some creatine, some workout stuff. Like maybe it's just elevation. I'm like, well, I'm not taking anything, maybe some whey protein, but okay. So I go in, and my liver enzymes are nearly 10 times the normal level, like through the roof. So we began doing some biopsies, some other tests. Many years went on trying different medications, biannual biopsies of my liver just to see if there's any cirrhosis, what's happening. It looks to be a healthy liver. So pathologist is like, something's not adding up. Like, we'll just keep monitoring, keep trying, but no formal diagnosis. So began trying to conceive naturally in around end of 2016. 2017, liver enzymes still elevated, full on creatine. At no point did anyone ever say, and they all knew when going through IVF and trying to get pregnant, no one's saying anything that there's any concern or it's not a red flag. So I'm just pushing on with all the things. And about 3 years ago, I moved to a different primary care doctor, and through the routine intake, she's going through it, and at the end she says, do you realize not getting pregnant might have saved your life? And I was like, okay, no. I remember kind of gazing out the window, and she's like, well, in pregnancy we're already monitoring liver enzyme elevation, so you going into pregnancy with liver enzymes through the roof like this, and it increasing during pregnancy, it could have put your life at risk as well as the baby's. And mind you, I have a best friend. She's a nurse in the NICU, and she's like, oh, it would have been help. We have an acronym for that. Like, it's liver failure. Like, we monitor this. Like, it's totally possible. And then in my own just research and speaking to some other gynecologists, and I'm like, what is this accurate? And they're like, absolutely.
Wow.
So there's like grace in that I can't explain.
Yeah.
And it's like, I find this out, I'm done. I'm not trying to get pregnant now. I find this out a couple years ago, but it's almost that hindsight of like, wow, God, you were protecting me.
Yeah.
You were
Yeah.
protecting me. So
Wow.
that's been the last 2 years. So that's been what I've been just working through.
Yeah.
Like the grace of that, still the grief of like not being able to conceive, but just knowing that all the time I felt I was in the dark and I'm just walking through I'm in the darkness, like the darkness. You're
Mhm.
on the journey. Like I'm sure
Mhm.
you understand that the
Yeah.
dark place,
Yes.
like there is light. There
Yeah.
really is light.
Yeah.
And it's been a lot for me to sit with, and learning that no that I grieved for so long very well might have saved me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. That is a testament by itself, obviously. We ask God to open doors for us. We also ask him to close things off and
Mhm.
please remove things that are not going to serve me or not going to keep me. And that's definitely a thought. I've talked to my husband about that. I said, I have a lot going on medically and things outside of infertility that are connected
Yeah.
to things I've, discovered along the way.
Yeah.
While there are plenty of women who might have, similar things or diagnoses, it doesn't
Yeah.
mean that everyone's outcome will be the same. And with all that I have had going on, I've thought about that. It's
Yeah.
come to my brain quite a couple times in terms of just maybe I'm being protected. Maybe, I may not be able to get through this, and there's something to that. And that's why when my husband and I talk about or have considered the donor egg option and,
Mm-hmm.
looking at that, there's hesitation there that I can't fully explain.
Yeah.
Because it seems like, well, again, if you can afford it, right?
Mm-hmm. You're
Um,
right.
it's like, in theory, you could still carry.
Yeah.
You've been pregnant via IVF twice. We didn't get
Mm-hmm.
very far, but it's like, well, implantation
You
happened, so
carry.
it could
Right.
happen
Yeah.
again. And maybe with, younger, better egg
And
quality, you know,
almost like what?
hey,
Why not try it? Let's
why not?
try
If
it.
you
It's
can
like,
afford it, let's do it.
yeah.
And yes, there's hesitation because of financial obligation, because
Mm-hmm.
we too were very blessed that when we did go into IVF, we had new insurance and we were able to get the majority of, all of our IVFs covered. So not going into debt for IVF is, as
Right.
you mentioned, like a privilege.
Yeah.
And being able to say we exhausted all options that we could do, without going into a hole. So yes, this would not be covered, so it would be a financial, task to take,
Mhm.
but there's something behind it. There's
Right.
something else behind. It's like, yeah, we could, get a
Yeah.
loan, do whatever,
We could do it.
sell your feet on the internet. I don't know what you got
Yeah.
to do,
It's options.
but there is something else that I told someone this past weekend. I was like, I'm not sure if putting my body back on the line
Mm-hmm.
is, what I want to do. And, you know, it might sound selfish to some people, or they might not be able to understand, like, well, if you say you really want this, how can
How
you
could you?
not try everything that you
Yeah.
can do to get to that final, I guess, consensus? And I don't know. There's just part of me that thinks that, what we've
Yeah.
been through is enough
Uh,
on some level. And I'm not sure. So
yeah.
I honor what you said, and I'm just so grateful and thankful that we are able to have this conversation and
Mhm.
that, we're both still here.
We're both still here. And,
So,
and yeah, because I can't count the number of people who said, "You don't want to just give it one more try."
yeah,
Like you said, your inch. It's not a financial thing. I mean, but it's a physical thing, and I'm going to trust my gut and my intuition, and
yeah,
that knowing that it's not for us.
yeah,
And in looking back, it's like, okay, I'm so glad
yeah,
that I trusted that. And not to say that I wouldn't have had another cycle, wouldn't have been successful, and I carried a baby and would have been absolutely fine.
right.
But in knowing what I know now,
Yeah,
it's I I I'm happy that I didn't risk
yeah.
it all trying to get there.
Risk
Yeah,
it all. Yep.
yeah.
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 Something else you mentioned when we connected was, how infertility is not just a medical experience. It's not just a diagnosis. It is literally something that can change your identity, right? It's a life-changing event. I remember laughing when my husband had changed jobs. And so with this new job, we finally were like, oh, there's coverage here. Like we had no idea. He got a new job. It just so happened we were in that space of, okay, now we have to go to IVF, and how are we going to pay for it? I knew that, my company did not have insurance. And so we were like, oh my God, we had no idea. What a blessing. But it was like middle of the year.
Yeah.
So when they said, oh, it's not a life-changing event, I said, that's funny. Anywho,
Yeah.
so we had to wait till,
The
the next
start of the next
enrollment
year.
cycle.
Right.
I was like,
Enrollment.
that's a joke.
Yeah.
But anyway, so can you just give me a little bit in terms of, what that means to you in terms of how it has changed life, how it has shaped your identity as a woman, as a mother, as a human, just making kind of sense of that space, because again, it'll be with you forever. And like you said, it's not just medical. It's so much deeper than that.
The disappointment changed me. It's that I felt like up until that moment, I had not really been disappointed. And when the disappointment is that it's almost like it's my body that's disappointing me. I can't control this. It was a very much a I. So I got very consumed in just sitting in that space of disappointment. Like, although all the other things I've accomplished, I'm a great daughter, all this great wife, all this stuff, it's like I still was just very disappointed in my quote unquote lack thereof. Like that I couldn't give my husband something, I couldn't have something I wanted. It was a constant disappointment. So that just continued to linger and just follow me even in other parts of my life. Like even once we welcomed our son, like I said, I still even walk into rooms and it's like I'm disappointed because I don't have a birth story to share. um I It's some imposter syndrome sometimes. So again, just back to that disappointment. So when I say a life changing, it's life changing. It's the medical diagnosis, the inability, the lack thereof. So that has changed even different parts of my life. Like sometimes I might not go after an opportunity because I'm scared of the disappointment. Whereas I might not have feared that before I experienced what I experienced. And that's been difficult and it's been a lot to work through. So life changing. I mean, the loneliness as well. It's a very lonely experience. And I was going through this 10 years ago. This was before TikTok and podcast and communities, Facebook communities. I didn't have that. It was me and my laptop looking for blogs. And few people looked like me and you. So I was just kind of left alone to like try to figure it out. I had friends who had kids and then friends who were single who weren't trying to have kids. And there was me in the midst of all of this alone. So the loneliness in itself is life changing. So it's identity shaping. It's going to change you forever, whether we want to admit it or not. Like I'm not the same person I was before this experience. And nor do I expect to be. Or I know that I've grown and there's better parts of me and a lot of maturity and growth and healing and a closer relationship with God. Because oftentimes in that loneliness and that disappointment, I would go to my mom, but it's like all I could do was lean on God. And she's like, you got to lean on something bigger than me, honey, build that relationship. So there were good things to come out of that, the life changing experience, but I'm not the person that I was before this.
Could not agree more. I mean, I've said that before. I will keep saying the same thing. Like that girl is not, she's here, but she's not, she's a different girl. She's a different girl that has been through a lot, seen a lot, and experienced, a lot. And like you said, there's so much beauty in parts of it. All the things you mentioned, closer to faith, having just different levels of growth and maturity and grace and empathy,
Yeah.
and just changing how we approach life
Life.
situations or societal norms and
Yeah.
all kind of
Different
things.
lens. The beauty of like looking off and noticing that the trees are blooming, and what does that look? But
Yes.
again, that's grief. So it's like I'm
Yeah.
maybe out of the grief stage of like mourning
Yeah.
fertility, but I'm in the grief stage of like mourning my mother. So
Yeah.
it's a bright, it's a lens, a different lens now. It's familiar though, because I
Yeah.
realize now that we'll call big G, big grief, losing a parent, a loved one, but acknowledging that, wow, that was grief that I felt then too,
Yep.
because this is very familiar.
Yep. Yep.
And 10 years out now from it, just being able to like manage it better,
Yeah.
because of what I learned in that experience.
Yeah. So you mentioned disappointment, and as we try to wrap up the episode up a little bit, how if someone is in the throes of it, if someone is feeling disappointment, they're feeling like my body is failing, I'm failing, I don't know who I am anymore, is there any piece of advice from your experience and your journey that you want to share with them?
I would say start looking for the little bit of light that comes in, because it's not going to be always dark. So we have to appreciate like the little glimmers of hope, and just I I know I would tell myself to just keep walking forward. I promise you. There'll be light at the end. Like I promise. Like I've lived it. So I know what it feels like. And when you're in the trenches, it's like everything is dark. It's just a dark place. So I would just say all things happen for a reason. All things work together for your good. I do truly believe that. And I'm able to say that because I've lived through that, and just keep walking, let the light in, notice the light, and just keep walking. It won't always feel like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one thing I didn't we mentioned it but didn't mention was, shout out to also the good partners,
Mm,
because I know you mentioned your husband, here and there in the conversation, and I could just tell that you had a true partner,
yes.
and that you mentioned, the small things that, we discussed this already. We were already on the same page when it came to, you know, how far we wanted to go to be
Yeah.
parents, and, that we were on the same page about, yes, we could do fertility treatments, we could, we could do adoption, we could, do these things, because I think, if I see younger couples or I see people, I'm like, hey, have you talked about what it looks like, if one, do you want to have children, and
Yes.
how does that look, right? Because everyone always asks, do you want to have kids, right? That's
It's
very
right.
usually the easier
Yeah.
question to ask. And even I've seen like Love is Blind, and I don't even want to give that show any credit because it's a hot mess.
Yeah.
But I've seen, them talking in these
Question.
pods, and only recently I feel like I've heard a couple people here and there ask the question a little bit deeper than just, do you want to have
Do you
kids?
want
And it's,
what if?
what if, right? And I think one girl, she might have had endo. I have endo. She might have had endo or something else going on. And she said, I may not be able to have children
Hmm.
naturally, or I don't know, but I might have issues or complications in the future. But it's so important that
Yeah.
if you do have a partner in this life, and that you are on the same page, and that you do go deeper in terms of not just, do you want to have children, but at what extent are you open
Yeah.
to creating, or extending your
Yeah.
family? I don't say like
And this
six.
was a question too that we had
Yeah.
because we were later in life too. So
Yeah.
it's, if we're getting married at 38, the conversations that happened, and he was always very firm in that, I'm marrying you. I'm not marrying what you can give me,
Yeah.
and we will work through it together. And he still, even though he sometimes he questions, well, why do you still feel that way? Like you have, it's been a while, you have a kid. And I'm like, but I still feel sometimes like my body failed me.
Yeah.
And that's a me thing. That's not
It's a big
something you can
thing.
you can
Yep.
fix. And he's just supportive in that way,
Yeah.
and understanding what he can understand, because a lot of stuff they won't understand. They
Yeah.
just they just can't. They can't.
Yes. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
But
No,
yeah,
same. My
yeah,
husband's very adamant in that as well. And, like I said, I married you. It doesn't matter. I will go as far as you want to go. I don't want to lose you in the process,
That's right.
but I will, go as far as you want to go to make, our dream, come true, or whatever we want to do. So I just wanted to, shout that out, because it's hard. I've been on panels and things with women who, unfortunately, marriages, again, don't know the full backstory, but, not being able to have children, or not being able to have children in a specific method, or way, caused obviously friction in a marriage, and,
Yeah.
ultimately, I think, contributed to, marriages ending. And so I always want to give a shout out to the good spouses and the good partners
Yeah.
out there. So
The
we
good.
got some good ones, me and you, it sounds like.
We
So
do. We do. Yeah. Yeah.
um, so if someone wants to connect with you, if they want to just reach out, maybe connect on social media, or give you a quick little note, or say, hey girl, I need some help.
Yeah,
Where can
I'm
they find
here.
you?
My
Can
DMs
they
are
reach
open. They can find me on Instagram, and I'm dibbling and dabbling on TikTok. Like I'm sorry.
I
There's a
hear you.
lot going on over there.
I hear
So
you
it's a
too.
lot going on over there. But yeah, I'm building a little tribe over there on TikTok. But it's at Angie Booker on both Instagram and TikTok. And happy to chat, and just if anyone needs to vent or just get a perspective from someone who's lived it. Hey, I'm old school now. I'm on the other side of this now. I'll be 48 this year. Like I'm on the
Woo!
other end of it. So
Yes.
yeah, happy to help.
Well, Angie, I thank you for being a part of our community. Thank you for being a part of my tribe that I have followed. Your story has absolutely given me insight, an additional layer of POV on, again, the other ways that this story can go. I
Yeah,
hate to say end, but the way that you kind of get out of this, because we're not always going to be in the infertility space, right? One way or another, you're not always going to be right here. If there's going to be a conclusion, we don't know what it might look like, but you will not always be here. And so I just thank you for being open, and for sharing your story, and for continuing to speak in this space and speak up. I'm always just encouraged when I come across women who, like I said, have been, out of it per se, or on the other side for multiple years, a decade, and they're still doing this work. Because it's important. And like you said, I started 8 years ago, you started 10 years ago.
yeah.
And like I said, I didn't have the
Got that.
resources. I didn't see the resources, which is why, we're still
Well, you
sitting here now
became the
having the
resource, and
conversation.
shout out to you, and thank you for using your voice. Yes,
Thank
because it's
you. It took a
necessary.
while to get to be able, like you said, to speak about it,
Yeah.
and be able to speak, in public and in private about it, more openly. But it has been a blessing. And I know for a fact, every time we share our stories, we help somebody else. So
Yeah.
I appreciate you. And you guys are the drill. Connect with Angie on social media. Follow her on TikTok to see all her latest antics. As we all learn TikTok,
We
shall,
all are
because we
learning
all at
TikTok.
the same time, and
Girl,
there'll
it's
be
like,
something
oh,
else new next year. We'll see.
right.
But
Oh goodness.
in the meantime, make sure you guys follow us at Fertility Ain't Fair. Look at our website, check out our social media pages, listen to past episodes, and if you want to sign up for our newsletter, we would love to have you. I'll probably be sending one out come the end of this quarter, or looking into April. And yeah, we have more episodes coming, more guests, more stories. So if you have anyone you want to, refer anybody to your girl, let me know. I'm always open to sharing more stories. And yeah, I think that's it until the next episode. So as I always say, I'm your forever friend in fertility. So stay hopeful.